The Zorathian survey ship Quantum Seeker hung in high orbit above the third planet, its sensors sweeping across the blue-green world below. Commander Vexthal studied the preliminary reports with growing satisfaction, his chitinous mandibles clicking in approval. "Perfect," he muttered, reviewing the data streams. "Atmospheric composition, breathable. Gravity, manageable. Dominant species, primitive tool users. Threat level, negligible." The Zorathian collective had been expanding through this spiral arm for 3 centuries, and Earth, designated as Target World 7739, appeared to be yet another easy acquisition. According to their deep space probes, the inhabitants had barely mastered radio waves and still used combustion engines. "Child's play. Initiate Phase 1, Vexthal commanded. Deploy the intimidation display." Across every screen, radio, and communication device on Earth, the message broadcast simultaneously. The Zorathians had perfected this technique on 17 previous worlds. "Show overwhelming force, demand submission, occupy within a standard cycle. Humans of Earth," Vexthal's translated voice boomed. "You have been selected for integration into the collective. Resistance is futile. Your weapons cannot harm us. Your armies will crumble. You have 48 of your hours to surrender, or we will demonstrate our superiority." Vexthal leaned back confident. The data was clear. Humans were fragile, short-lived creatures who spent most of their brief existence fighting amongst themselves. They would fold quickly. What the data hadn't mentioned, what the ancient probe had failed to capture, was what humans did when they stopped fighting each other. In Geneva, the emergency UN session lasted 6 minutes. Every nation, despite centuries of conflict, voted unanimously. In Moscow, Beijing, Washington, Delhi, and every military command center, orders went out within the hour. General Sarah Chen stood in NORAD, watching the alien ship on her screens. Beside her, a Russian colonel she'd considered an adversary just yesterday now shared strategy reports freely. "They think we're primitive," she said quietly. "Duh," Colonel Dmitry Volkov replied with a grim smile. "Let them think that until it is too late." The Zorathian data was catastrophically outdated. The probe had visited during Earth's early Cold War period and had somehow classified nuclear weapons as primitive fission devices of limited yield. It had noted humanity's tendency toward self-destruction, but had missed the critical detail. Humans were extraordinarily good at killing things when properly motivated. 48 hours later, Vexthal expected mass panic and surrender. Instead, he got silence. Unnerved, he ordered a landing force to occupy a major population center, something called New York City, to encourage cooperation. The troop carriers descended through the atmosphere, their shields shimmering. Vexthal watched from orbit, ready to receive the surrender. The first carrier exploded at 12,000 feet, then the second, and the third. "What?" Vexthal's voice caught as his screens filled with threat warnings. Railguns, hypersonic missiles, directed energy weapons, weapons that shouldn't exist on a primitive world suddenly bloomed across every continent like a deadly garden. "Evasive maneuvers," he shrieked, but it was already too late. From underground silos and hidden bases, from submarines and mobile platforms, humanity unleashed everything. The Zorathians' shields, designed to deflect the plasma weapons of conventional spacefaring species, had no protocols for the sheer kinetic brutality of human engineering. A telephone pole-sized tungsten rod, dropped from low orbit and accelerated by gravity alone, punched through the Quantum Seeker's portside like tissue paper. "Retreat. Send distress." Vexthal's command died as 3 nuclear-tipped missiles, traveling at Mach 25, converged on his position. 6 hours after the failed invasion began, the last Zorathian escape pod was captured by a joint US-Chinese-Russian task force. The aliens inside were terrified, their database smoking with corrupted data. At the United Nations, representatives gathered around the captured alien technology. The Zorathian database was a treasure trove: star maps, faster-than-light travel, advanced materials, and the intelligence on the collective's 17 conquered worlds. "They thought we were easy prey," Ambassador Okafor said, scrolling through the translated files. "Their data said we were divided, primitive, weak." "They weren't entirely wrong," General Chen admitted. "We are divided. We do fight amongst ourselves." She looked at the other leaders in the room, old enemies, new allies. "But apparently we're much better at fighting others." President Martinez pulled up the Zorathian Collective's star map. 17 conquered species, hundreds of subjugated worlds, an empire built on the assumption that technological superiority meant military invincibility. They made a mistake, she said softly. They assumed evolution was linear. That advanced technology meant they'd left violence behind. She gestured to the wreckage of the Zorathian fleet, still burning in orbit. They forgot that sometimes the most dangerous species is the one that never stopped learning how to fight. Within weeks, humanity had reverse-engineered Zorathian FTL drives. Within months, the first human warships, cobbled together from alien tech and human ingenuity, left the solar system. The Zorathian Collective received a message on every frequency. "This is Earth. You attacked us based on bad data. We don't accept your surrender because you can't surrender to us. We're not conquerors. But we are liberating every world you've enslaved. Your expansion is over. Should you wish to peacefully coexist, we're open to negotiation. Should you wish to fight, we'll remind you what happens when apex predators get angry. Choose wisely." Commander Vexthal, imprisoned but alive, watched the broadcast from his cell. He finally understood the fatal flaw in their intelligence gathering. The data had shown humans as they were in the past, divided and primitive. It had failed to predict what they could become when united by a common threat. The most terrifying species in the galaxy, he realized, wasn't the strongest or the most advanced. It was the one that had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of war against itself, waiting for a real challenge. The Zorathians had given them that challenge, and they had gotten their data catastrophically, irrevocably wrong.